Okay, awesome. No idea what happened there. I appreciate you sticking with me, Alicia. So let's go ahead and get started. So, like I was saying, I'm going to rewind a bit. This is the November live stream, and the focus is on my favorite EdTech tools. So, on this channel, you can see a lot of EdTech tutorials. And because there's so many, it might be hard to see, well, which ones do I favor? So, these are the ones that I use, if not every class period, then at least every week, as well as one that I discovered more recently, and I really think it's a great tool. So I want to make sure to mention that one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go on and share my screen. So here we go. All right, and so to begin, and let me make sure I just open up my YouTube so I can keep checking to make sure it looks fine. Okay. So on here, the first tool that I use a lot is Loom, and it's free to use if you use your EDU email address. So if you have, which you should, I'm assuming, an EDU address, sign up with it and you can get free access to the pro version. Okay. And so let me just make sure. Okay. On here, you can see my database, my dashboard. And so I have tons and tons of videos here. Like about this particular tool is that it overrides the need for YouTube if you're an educator. So if we go ahead and go and click on this one, this is one of the ones I recorded. You can screen record just a screen, or you can screen record the screen as well as yourself on camera, or you can just record yourself. So you have all three options that works really well. I usually just do the screen. I don't put myself on there because I don't think it really matters to my students, but it is an option if you'd like. It's kind of similar to what's happening now where you see me on the bottom of the screen. Only on Loom, it's a little circle rather than the square because I'm using StreamYard currently. And so on here, one thing I want to show you, because again, there's a tutorial on my channel, is that when you have the actions here, you can just copy the link to the video and share it with your students. And so I've used this in different ways. You could obviously record a lesson at home and then share it with your students on Canvas, for example, or you might do something in class that you want to go ahead and screen record so you can share it later in case students are absent. And again, works really well because you can do some basic trimming of the video. You can trim out errors or long pauses or long wait times if a web page is loading, whatever the case may be. And then once you've trimmed out those elements, you can go ahead and again say, okay, save changes. It takes out those errors, and now you can share the video. So really works out well. You can download it and then upload it wherever you'd like as well, but really works, to your advantage. You just copy the link and then post it where you want it, and you don't have to take the step of uploading it to YouTube or Vimeo or wherever it is that you might be using currently. The other things I like about it is that you can make them call to action. So you might say, okay, I want to go ahead and when they go to this video, they have to click this button to go to this website. They do the reading and then they watch the video, right? Or maybe they watch a video and they click there and they go to the next element of the activity. So you can actually add that into the video really easily. If you want, you can add thumbnails so it looks all pretty versus how it looks currently. And you can also password protect the video so only people with a password can see it. So on the whole, I really do think this is a good one to use if you're doing video creation in your classroom, either at home or when you're actually teaching. Okay, so let me just go back here and double check. Oh, I have a question. So are you an assistant professor? So I adjuncted this last year, and then before that, I was a graduate teaching assistant for 5 years. So I have 6 years of teaching undergrad courses, but I'm not currently an assistant professor. So that's my experience at the moment. So yes, definitely, I love free as well, Alicia. So it's definitely one of those where the free version, if you don't have an EDU, still gives you some wiggle room, but you have a lot more space and more time if you sign up with the EDU and get the Loom Pro for free. So definitely take advantage of it. Okay, so next one that I use a lot is the Google Suite. And so probably not a surprise to any educator, but I do find that Google Docs and slides are the ones that I use most constantly, but I also use forms as well at times. So a few ways that I use these. So for Google Docs, one thing that I think works really well or can work really well is, as you can see here, it's called All Unit Examples 1101. So what I did is I created this doc and I said, okay, this is 1101 is composition, so all freshmen. And so I had unit 1 right up here. And then when I had, okay, I want to give them an example of an outline, I created the example right on this page. And so this document is shared on Canvas and then at the top of the screen, on top of the modules. And so every time they need like, oh, where's her example of this thing? Well, if I click on this link, I'll go to the document that has examples all throughout the semester. So in unit 1 here, I have an outline example to begin. So I have, okay, what's my target audience? And then I had, okay, well, approach 1, you can outline by subtopics. Here's an example of how that can work. Or you could outline by paragraph. Here's an example of how that could work. And so students just go to the document and see, okay, I favor the second approach. Let me see how much detail she went into so I can use this as a mentor text in creating the assignment themselves. And then I had approach 3. If you want to, you can mind map. And I showed them a video what mind mapping looks like in case they wanted to take that approach. But you keep on going on. Okay, how we cite. I had lessons on using MLA citation, how to do it, why you do it, where you do it, and all of that. And so now I have, okay, well, here are examples of types of citations. And here is talking about, remember, we did this presentation where I went over this information, check that Google Slides presentation at this point in time. And so they can go out and they find that link and they open that instead. So this is obviously a long document, 34 pages. This is a whole semester's worth of examples for the class. So eventually, if you keep on scrolling down, we reach unit 2. Okay. And so I like doing this where it's just like, okay, I'm going to open up and share it with my students. They cannot edit it. They can only view it. And so I know that they're not going to be tweaking it. Only I can do that. But they can easily find all these examples in one place. So I think that can work really well. Now, another way I use it is for doing in-class activities. And so in this case, we were talking about the rhetorical triangle of writer, audience, and purpose. And so I went over a slide presentation about this information. And so what I did is I shared this document with students, but this one they could edit themselves. And so in this case, I went over, okay, what's a simple answer of these 3 elements of the triangle when thinking about menus for food? And so the writer is someone connected to the restaurant. The audience is any hungry people looking to eat Latin food. And this was a menu for Casabana, the restaurant. The purpose, to inform the customers of what they can order to eat or drink. So like, okay, that's a simple answer to this triangle, but what's the complicated answer? And so what I did was I had, okay, different groups have different menus. And so I want you to write in detail, who do you think the writer is or writers? Who are the audiences? What are the purposes of this genre? Using the triangle as your basis for answering this question. And so I assigned my students into groups 1 through 4, and then they can go into this document, find their group number, and answer the question. And so at the end of the activity, I had a document where all the information was already found. And so you can do this and have students write their names, so then you can give them points for doing the activity, or it can be anonymous. It really depends, on your preference. But in this way, again, it's really easy to collect student writing in class by using Google Docs. So I recommend using it. It's a great tool for, again, showing examples or doing small group projects. On a similar vein, Google Slides is what I use for my presentations. If you use PowerPoint, you could literally just copy your PowerPoint slides and paste them into Google Slides, and they'll transfer very easily. And the reason why I like using Google Slides is because of the ability to use Pear Deck alongside with it. So once again, Pear Deck is a free tool that you can use. And what it does is you can use it to make certain slides interactive with your students. So in this case, let's talk about writing. So big picture ideas. So again, I have the 3 elements of the triangle that we discussed, but then I have a Pear Deck slide, right? And so this one is interactive. When students are seeing my presentation, they can go to the Pear Deck website, put in the code that leads them to this presentation, and then they'll see the slide. Apply the concept of audience to a recent writing experience you've had. And then in their phone or their laptop or their tablet, they can type out their answer. Oh, here's an example of this concept. And when they do that, it projects onto the screen so that you can see all your students' answers in relation to this slide. It's anonymous unless you have them sign in with their Gmail. I always just use it, keep it anonymous. But you can do short answer questions, multiple choice, and numerical answers as well using this tool. So in this case, you can use it for lectures. In this case, here's an example of that. You can also use it as an exit card approach. So at the end of the class, you can say, okay, what's one takeaway you had from this class? And then they can answer that question. Or you might have, next class period, we're going to be talking about this topic. Would you rather do this type of activity, this type, or that type? And then they can answer that as well, and majority wins, right? So there's different ways of using this tool as a lecture enhancement or as an exit card are two of them that I use pretty constantly with Pear Deck. And so it's very simple to use. Once you've added it to Google Slides, you just do add-ons, Pear Deck, and open it. And that will go ahead and open it on the right side of the screen. And you can say, okay, well, I want to go ahead and make a slide, a text answer, multiple choice, numerical, etc. And doing that is very simple. It converts it for you. And then when you want to do it, you say start lesson and it plays. And again, students use the code to sign in. So this, I do have a tutorial, start to finish. In case you're interested, I'll link it below in the description. All right, so let me go back here, see if any of the questions have popped up. All right, it seems I'm not the only one who uses Google Slides. Yeah, I find it such a great tool because you can just use it really easily, and there's a lot of add-ons that can work. This is the main one that I use, though. But I know there are others in case you're interested in seeing what else is available. Okay, next tool is Kahoot. And again, Kahoot is a very popular tool. You've probably heard of it. It is more popular in K through 12, but I think it has a lot of potential at the college level. So in this case, it's going to be showing in a second here all the various Kahoots I created for my courses. And so there's different approaches with this tool as well. It's designed to be a quiz tool, multiple choice, so up to 4 answers if you're using the free version. And so you can do multiple choice or true and false with the free one. And so in this case, I don't use it for quizzes. I use it as a foundation of a discussion. So let's go ahead and if I click into horror stories. So I had my students read short stories as part of our class, and there were horror stories, romance, and then other ones, fantasy. And so in this case, what I did was, rather than having it be like, what's the correct answer? It's what do you want to discuss, right? So for example here, a message of the monkey's paw is to be careful what you wish for. So what, right? So what do you want to discuss about this fact? Do you want to connect what that means in connection to the reader? What does that say about the culture it was written in or the culture it's being read in? Or do you want to talk about how this message connects to the genre of horror, right? And so students click the answer, their preference. And if the winner was connect to culture, then all right, let's talk about that first. The message of monkey's paw is be careful what you wish for. Is that a message we see in our culture? Are there other examples of literary texts that have a similar message? Why is this message happening in this particular story? How does it connect to cultural ideas about being greedy, right? Or being naive about powerful forces in the world? And so, you keep going down, and another monkey paw one, but in the cast of Amontillado, M uses F's weakness against him in order to get his revenge. Well, what do you want to focus on? Focus on the drinking element of weakness, the pride weakness, or the greed weakness? Because there's more than one in this story. And something to consider is Kahoot does have limitations on character limit. So in this, I just did the cast rather than the whole name of the short story, and then M and F rather than the whole names of the characters. So that's a way of getting around that limitation if you need to. But this is the main way I use Kahoot. I use it as, okay, here's a starting point for discussion. Where do you want discussion to go? It gives that students feeling of empowerment because they're deciding what the focus of the discussion is, but you're making sure that we're focusing on at least something that should be focused on, not just like, well, who's your favorite character, right? It's more analyzing the stories, but they control the analysis to a great extent. So that's one approach of using Kahoot. Another way of using it, though, that I do want to point out is this example here. It can be a way of getting a sense of how students feel about the course. So I did this at the end of a semester. I wanted to get a sense of what they felt about the course itself. And so I have, for example, the university policy requires you to write 6,000 words. So which approach would you prefer? So in 1101, I had 3 papers and autobiography. In 1102, I had 2 papers, 2 mini posts, and an autobiography. And so I asked them, okay, well, considering that I don't control how much you have to write, what breakdown do you think is better? And so I had answers to that question. And then I had, which should I keep? I had 2 novels, Harry Potter and American Born Chinese. Do you think I should keep one or the other, neither, or both? So I gave students some time to get a sense of, what did you feel about the course? And so now I knew, okay, you know what? Next time I teach this course, I'm going to keep American Born Chinese because I had the majority say that they really enjoyed it and they thought it was really interesting. But Harry Potter, some liked it, some didn't, but it wasn't an overwhelming answer. So maybe I'll change the second novel that I assign. So using this as a sense of a course assessment can be great too if you have multiple choice questions or true and false, right? So Kahoot is great. I've never used a paid version. I think the free one offers, enough. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm glad that it's a new idea for you, Alicia. So yeah, I definitely think using it as a foundation for discussion is great. And there's, again, using it as a quiz can be fun. You can use it as a competition and offer rewards, for example. But in my case, this is the main way I use it of, let's, lead the discussion, but not be over, strict on what it is that we discuss. And when I have students choose to lead facilitation of a discussion, which I had them do in small groups, a lot of them use Kahoot as their foundation as well because they seem to react well to this use of the tool. Some use Pear Deck as well. Some use no tech whatsoever. But I would say out of 10 groups, 7 will use Kahoot as their tool. Some use it as a quiz. Others use it in this way. So just an idea here of how I use this tool. And again, I'll have a tutorial link below in case you are new to it if you're watching this later on. Now, the next one is Flippity.net. So this is an interesting tool because it has different options for you. And basically what it does is it uses Google Docs, Google spreadsheets in particular, in order to create games or activities. So for example, here you have different options. Now, I haven't used all of them, but I've used quite a few. If there is online a free Jeopardy PowerPoint template that you can use if you want to pay Jeopardy as a review for your students. But there also is this quiz show template, which might be easier for you if you don't want to use PowerPoint. You can just go ahead and get the instructions. It takes you to a link to the Google spreadsheet. You fill it out, say, okay, create the game, and it creates it for you. You don't have to figure out how to actually code the spreadsheet to create the game itself. So I do have a video on this as well in case you haven't used it before. It takes you through some examples of how I've used this tool. But the ones that I like using, the random name picker worked out really well when I was teaching high flex courses because I had students in the classroom, some on Zoom, but since I had the majority on Zoom in the first semester and they were all black screens, like I couldn't use body language to figure out who's ready to answer it and who's super confused, right? So I felt bad when I would choose a random box and they'd be like, oh, I don't know. And then it kind of like make me feel bad, make them feel bad. So like, you know what? I need to make sure they're prepared and I don't want to feel bad about choosing people. So I use the random name picker. And literally all it is, as you can see here, is a little circle here. I had the names of my students and I told them, when we're doing discussion, if no one's volunteering to speak, all I'll do is I'll click the button, it will spin, it'll tell me the name of the student, and you're the one who's answering this question. So make sure you're paying attention, make sure you're doing the work and keeping up because you don't know when you might be chosen. So yes, if you're chosen and you don't know, you can tell me that, but I'm gonna at least try to get you to guesstimate what an answer might be, to get your thoughts on it, because discussion is a huge part of my courses. So this took away that guilt feeling that I had of choosing the black boxes. And it also lets students know, I'm not picking on you. Literally, it's a randomized name picker that's choosing who goes next. So I do like that one a lot if that's something that is an issue in your class. The randomizer is also pretty cool. You can have multiple columns here, as you can see. And so basically, I use this in my literature courses because you can have, for example, if you have 4 columns, you might have, okay, well, which novel or which short story that we read for today, right? That's 2 short stories. We read 3 short stories for today. Which one are we going to discuss first? That would be the first column. The second one would be, okay, do we want to focus on characterization or plot structure or setting or gender dynamics, right? Different topics here. Okay, do we want it to be a debate style for our discussion, a fishbowl, small group activity, right? That might be the third column, what type of activity we're doing, right? And then the fourth one might be, okay, well, how long are we going to do this activity for? 15 minutes, 25, 40, whole class period, right? That's just one example of how you can use these 4 columns. And you click, okay, randomize, and it'll randomize it for you. So then, okay, the short story is this one. We're going to focus on characterization. We're going to do a debate, and we're going to do this for 25 minutes. So pretty cool. I think that game aspect of this tool can be pretty fun, and it can be used a lot of different ways. So again, you just use a spreadsheet, click to create it, and it creates this game for you. I've never used a scavenger hunt before. I feel like there's probably other tools that can do this better, but it is an option. I've never used a board game as well. That one seems kind of newish to me. So potentially that has potential. And then again, you can kind of go through. A lot of these are for younger students, I would say. So the matching game, for example. Bingo can be pretty cool. I like playing bingo, but I just create my own game versus using this one. But it can be an option. And then again, you go down here and there's a lot. The timeline can work really well. It can be really advanced or very simple. But because the template because it can be advanced, the template can be a bit confusing. So that's something you might need to lead your students through when you use it for the first time. Okay, so again, you can kind of go through here, word search, crossword puzzles, word scrambles. Depending on what course you're teaching, there's a lot of potential here. And again, very simple to use. You literally say, okay, go to instructions, and it tells you exactly what to do. Open this template, make a copy of it, right? Edit the words and clues, label your puzzle, publish it to the web, and then get the link, and then you can create it. So definitely a great tool to use if you want to gamify your classroom a bit more. There's a lot of options here, and it's very user-friendly. Okay, do I use Nearpod? No, I do not. I'm pretty sure Nearpod is a paid tool, and I tend to stick to free ones. So I've heard great things. It's on my list of tools to try out and potentially do tutorial for my channel, but I haven't used it before. But I have heard amazing things. Is it one that you use, Alicia? Like, would you recommend it to the group here? I'll check up your answer in a minute here, but I do want to go ahead and focus on the last one, since we're going a bit over time here. And that's one that I have not used to teach yet because I discovered it pretty recently, but I do have a tutorial or an overview on my channel in case you haven't used it before. And it's called Genially. So Genially has a great free version. The only downside of the free version really is that the logo for Genially has to appear on everything you create. I had the pro version because Genially had reached out to me to see if I wanted to try the pro version for free and share it with my audience if I thought it was worth it. And I definitely do, right? I recommend it. I had a video on it. But it's basically a way of creating interactive slides, interactive activities for your students. And so here's some examples that I went over in that video. But what I'm going to do instead is if you click, this is my dashboard. If you click Create Genially, it'll show you what you can use this tool for. So it can be presentations, it can be infographics, you can gamify, it can be a guide that you create, video presentation. So there's all the stuff here that it can be used for, or you can do starting from scratch. Obviously very hard to do that. I recommend using templates. But what's pretty cool is that, let's say, for example, an interactive image. In this case, they already have some for you that might work out well. So let's say you're teaching, let's see, about volcanoes. If you click here, you can go ahead and share this link with your students, let's say on Canvas. And so here's an image, and you click on here, and you'll see information that's been added, right? And then if you click on this one, here's more information. And if you click on this one, you'll see this element. So basically, it makes an interactive image, right? And you can create your own, uploading an image and then adding these different circles and information there. But it's a pretty cool one if you have something that you really want to show visually. But then also, what works really well is if you go ahead and let's say you do a presentation, there's all these templates, and there's free ones and paid ones. So obviously you want to make sure you're using the free one. But if it has a star, that means it's one of the paid ones. If it doesn't, then it's free to use. And you can go through, and what's really cool is, let me find a free one. So let's say this one. And you can look through it as a preview, what it would look like. So presenting my Blackboard, this will happen. And the next one, there's an index of what's in the presentation. And so you can click on one of these boxes and it'll take you to that one specifically. So this is obviously a very advanced one. I like it. So you can say, use this template. And it'll open it up, and then you can go ahead and say, okay, well, which pages do I want to use? Which ones am I going to use in this template? All of them? Okay, let's go ahead and select all and go ahead and add it to my dashboard. And so now you have a template for a really interactive presentation. And what's great is that with Genially, you can have pop-ups on the screen. You can have it linked to a different website. You can have it where it's a hover feature where you hover over an element of the slide and information pops up. And so it's really a way of making your activities more visually engaging as well as more interactive for your students. So you can create some kind of activity and have students do it at home. Just go around, flip the various things, learn information about the topic at hand. And so it works basically like Google Slides or PowerPoint. You go on through and you say, okay, here's one, and you click in and you edit the words. But then what you can do is, for example, let's say I click here. So this has no current animation or interactivity. But you can go here, and this is the animation one, and you can say, okay, this image, when it enters, go ahead and do the focus feature, or go ahead and do the turn on feature, like that, right? So let's say the turn on feature. And when it's on the screen, I actually want it to be pulsing the whole time that I'm on this slide, okay? And when we're exiting to a different slide, I want it to fade out, right? So you can add all of these types of animation to different elements of the slide. When I hover over it, I want it to shadow, right? And so now we have all these animations, and you can get rid of them if you don't want them, right? Very easily as well. So that's that element. But also this one is the big one that Genially offers, the interactivity. Because what you can do is a tooltip. So this is when you hover over, information will appear. You can do a window. So you click on it and a window appears above the slide with information that you add in. You can say, okay, when they click here, go to the 10th page of the presentation. Go to the 7th page of the presentation, right? And you can link to a website or to another resource as well. So this is the amazing thing about Genially. The ability to do these 4 things allows you to create simple or really complex activities or materials for your students. And again, the free version, anything you might like is there. The only thing is that on the bottom left, or I believe you can choose the bottom or the top, the Genie logo will appear. So you have to make sure that you notice that so you don't accidentally put information where the logo will cover it. Okay, so this is kind of a brief overview of this. I have a video as well that will show you more. But if you haven't heard of this, to try it out, I do think it's a good tool to try out for yourself. So yes, that is the last one that I wanted to focus on for today's video. Okay. All right, so there is a free version in Nearpod. Really good to know. Thank you for letting me know. I'll have to try it out and see, what I might do later on. So let me go ahead and go back to me here. All right, I appreciate you sticking with me throughout the tech issues earlier on. If you have any questions about the ones I went over, you can ask them now or in the comments later. I'll check it out too. I know there's a lag time, so I'll wait to see if you have any questions, those of you who are watching. But really, EdTech tools, there's so many free ones around that I try to stay away from the ones that you have to pay for, especially as an educator. Why would you pay out of pocket when the university has some options and there's so many free ones? Of the ones that I went over, the one that I really like the most is probably the last one, Genially. But the one that I think is the most easy to use and the most helpful is Kahoot. Because it does have a really simple layout. It's very user-friendly, and students really love it. And you can do so many different types of activities with the free version. I went over to the discussion foundation and the course assessment type of activities, There's also obviously review games that you can do before an exam. You can actually make it a quiz that's scored. You can have debates with it as well. So you might have, okay, here's a prompt. So I don't know, global warming, and then you have options. Are you this side or are you that side? And then your students can say, okay, I want to do A, I want to do B, and then you can kind of go from there. So you don't have to actually use like the physical answers. You can just say, okay, well, most of you had an interest on this side, but we need to have some on the other side as well who voted for the left side, right? And then you can see, and you can kind of pick, okay, here are the first two they're going to debate, and so on. So you can use it in really creative ways. And I do think it's the one students are usually familiar with because it's used so often in the classroom. And it's very easy to just sign in and use the code. So I do think that Kahoot is probably the best one if you're going to start in one place. But the other ones offer great things as well. So I recommend trying them out on your own. I know the semester's basically over at this point, but maybe for the next one, hopefully these will be helpful for you. Okay, so I don't see any questions. Thank you for sticking around, and we'll have one more live stream this year, the December one. And so in a week or two, I'll go ahead and post the community. What topic do you want to be focused on in that live stream? And then the winner will be the one that I speak to. It'll happen near the end of the month, but because it is the Christmas time, I'm gonna have to figure out exactly what day it is at. So you'll see the announcement on the community as well. If you're not a subscriber yet, I recommend doing so you don't miss out on future videos. And again, in the description, you'll see all my tutorials or overviews of the tools I mentioned in today's video, as well as a few more options as well, in case those interest you too. So I'll see you next month with a new live stream. But until then, remember, I have a new video every Friday that will go live. All right, see you later.